good friends of ours who are going to be doing the panel for you guys. Barb and Dawn from our friends at Relish. All right, so we have a treat for you guys today, okay? We have 3 of our friends from The Walking Dead, and I'm going to introduce them right now. It's Laila Robbins, Teo Rapp-Olsson, and Josh Hamilton. And I'm gone.
Thank you.
How y'all doing?
We're great. How are you?
Awesome. We're going to start off with a little interesting question.
Ooh.
Strange, normal, odd. Do you guys have any special hidden talents? Speak up.
Hidden talents.
Oh yeah, speak up.
Special hidden talents. Any of these?
I'm not sure that they're safe for work.
Yeah, they are.
You showed me that one. That
Yeah,
changed the relationship.
that was just
special hidden talents. You know.
I barely have unhidden talents.
I was a fencer for a while.
Oh.
I watched The Three Musketeers and said I want to do that. Turns out you don't fence on stagecoaches, so that a little bit, but I still, yeah. Does that count?
Yes.
I have double jointed thumbs. Alright, I'll see myself out.
I don't know how hidden. I used to be a volleyball player. I was a volleyball player. I was a spiker. My sister was a setter. And then I went to college. I got on the team, but then I got into play. So I chose the play, and my father never got over it.
Laila, when you first got the script and you found out your character shot Judith, what was your reaction?
I knew I would be the most hated. I was a little terrified. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to walk the streets now? I'm going to have Dustin follow me around. Yeah, I got a little nervous.
All 3 of you, has anything embarrassing happened to you on set that it just sticks out in your mind? And it could be not even from just The Walking Dead.
I have one, which is in the big banquet scene, which is, I say it's like 114 or 110. There's a trooper comes up, or a former trooper, and grabs Max Margot and has the knife to her, and then runs off. And we were shooting that all night, and I have just one line I have to say, which I have to get up and go, "What are you doing? Go after him!" And we do this 400 times. And on the last take, in my head was like, that was it. Like, you crushed it. That's the one. Just the next level of anger was there. And I'm kind of clearly strutting back. And I think it was you who first came up to me and was like, "Did you say her?" And I was like, no. I definitely didn't. And then I see Michael James Shaw walking towards me with a laughing smile. I said her, didn't I? And they're like, "We gotta go one more time." All looking at me. I was like, cool. All right. This might be my last episode here, but yeah, it was definitely from the highest to the lowest, I would say.
I'm trying to remember. I think most of mine involved heat. I remember shooting the scene outside in the summer. I think we're walking up to. We're supposed to theoretically we've walked from. Where did we say that the Commonwealth was?
Oh.
Ohio, yeah. They had us walk from Ohio to Hilltop in a few hours, which is impressive walking. And we got to Hilltop, and they had this scene where I'm supposed to walk up to the gate, and I'm talking to, I think Maggie's up in the thing. I'm like, "Let us in," or something. And we kept doing this thing and walking. It was sort of uphill to the gates of Hilltop, and I'm supposed to come up and say something. And I guess after a few takes, I was just I hadn't drinking enough water or something, and I walked up and I looked up to say my line, and I started to get super lightheaded and dizzy. And so I thought I was going to faint for a second, and I was just standing there, and everyone's looking at me, and I think they thought I was just taking a real acting moment. trying to not fall down, you know, and I just was getting more and more, I was just quiet, no one wanted to say anything. They really just thought I was like doing something, and they were feeling embarrassed, like they thought like I was making this choice, this really dramatic choice before I actually said my line. I think I actually stumbled, and then they were like, "Cut, are you okay?"
You're like, it was all a choice.
Yeah. Let an actor have his process. Come on.
I think there was a scene with Josh where in the jail cell, where I have to take the coin out of his front pocket. And we did it several times, but early on in doing that, the prop guy would always forget to put it back in his pocket. And it was like the most intense scene. I'd be so upset because he was dealing with my son and everything. And I come in and we get through this great scene, and then I go in, where's the
She'd be rooting around. Confession, I did tell the prop guy once or twice. Make her work for it.
Following that answer, what is your interpretation of Josh and Pamela's relationship?
We just decided to throw a little kink into it.
Yeah.
A little kinkiness, I guess. But it's more fun to play that, right? Just thought, you know, there was kind of a mentorship, but also maybe a little sexual tension, nothing consummated.
No, I had this idea that I was always, you know, that I grew up near her, like she was in the ivory tower, you know, the rich family, and like my dad worked for her. This was, I mean, this is never explained, but I think it was this was Angela's theory that like maybe my dad had been like the Milton chauffeur or something.
Yeah, right.
So I'd grown up kind of like very near her, and had like a huge crush on her from afar. But you know, usually we were really in a different class. But then I sort of worked my way up. But I always had this thing of like wanting to please her and like impress her, and you know, maybe a little bit more.
But it really betrays me. I don't know where I went wrong.
You only hurt the ones you love.
Do you see yourselves in your everyday life in any characters you've ever played?
I like how all three of them in unison. I guess I always play bossy pants, and I guess I'm pretty bossy in life too.
I think there's always some element that you bring in whatever manner that is. I like to think there's very little of Sebastian in my day-to-day life. But somebody had said this to me at one point, and I did like it, that there's still kind of like, even in a lot of the mean stuff, there's almost like a comedic timing of lines to the beats, and I think that was like my own silliness coming through in a little way. Because I mean, yeah, again, I don't tend to shout at people and scream, "Go after him or her," so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating question, because if you ask a lot of actors, I think that a lot of them will tell you that there are certain roles that come to them at certain points in your life, and you always have to sort of wonder, like, why this part now? Like, is it something that I'm putting out there, or like it's something that I need to learn from it? I mean, you can get kind of, you know, spiritual about it, be like, why this role now? And you can really like kind of go down a rabbit hole of like what you need to learn about this role at this time about yourself, or what it is about how people see you, that like, you know, because often you don't see yourself the way other people see you, so you're like, you know, why do I keep getting cast as the evil jerk? Yeah, if you really, it is always interesting to see, and sometimes you learn things about, you know, because sometimes you have to think, if the character's not if it's not like you, or if it's, and sometimes you have to reach and sort of put yourself in their state of mind, and it helps you learn things about yourself. You're like, even though that's not the way I think about the world, you have to sort of put yourself in their worldview, and then that can't help but leave a little residue of that experience. And so then there is always then a part of you that will kind of, if you've stretched your brain to sort of think like someone else, I do think you work other muscles in your own brain, and then you sort of, it's almost more afterwards that I feel like a role has affected me, you know, then it's not like why. What was the question?
I feel like we too, like when I read a script and there's something about the character that sort of scares me, or like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if that's in me, but I kind of like that. Those are the jobs I want to take. And I can always tell when I'm reading a script and and literally my blood in my body starts circulating in the opposite direction. It's like, oh, what's that going to be like? You know, ooh, that's kind of exciting. I don't know if I can meet that challenge, and that's what's fun about it. You know, you don't want to always take the safe thing that you can always do easily.
It's a lot more fun, yeah.
So if any of your characters could have a scene with any of the character from season 1 to 11 that you didn't get to do a scene with, who would it be?
I would have liked to have had a scene with Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Yeah. I mean, I worked one day with him, but it was very peripheral. We just all kind of in a group. But I would have liked to have kind of a one-on-one. Yeah.
Glenn, Stevie. I just think we would have played really fun off of each other, and him, you know, kind of being like, "Who is this guy?" And like, "You don't know who I am." I think we would have worked well together.
Yeah, I'd have to say, if I had to choose like 3, I'd say Scott Wilson. And I would have loved to work with Samantha Morton, just because I love her so much as an actor, and Jeffrey Dean. I would have liked to have like the two bad guys face off a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, you guys didn't get a scene with Jeffrey? Oh.
As you can see, he's nothing like the sun.
It's a little colder in here. Am I the only one?
Famous question that we all love to ask all the time: did you ever take anything home from set?
I just took my coin, like my flip coin. They made me sort of like an extra big one, so it was kind of like, you know, it was not a quarter piece yet. So, I think that's it. Yeah. Oh, and an arrow. I took the half arrow that was stuck. So I do have my death. My cause.
Oh, for future Halloween.
Yeah.
I was so afraid to break anything on that set. I was just like, I'm gonna get canned here. I just can't. So it was only like late in the game that I started being like, can I take something? I just took clothes. Because I was just like, I could use this. So I have like pants and like a shirt and stuff like that.
I usually take clothes, but there wasn't a lot of my wardrobe that I actually was going to wear in nonetheless.
Style. There was some khakis in there. I was like, all right, I'll hold on to these.
Well, I think I took my backup wig, but it hadn't been like zhuzhed the way Taylor had really done a lot of work on the wig to make it work in a certain way with the color and the texture. And then there was this backup wig in the drawer, and it was nothing like the wig. So I took that home. So I'm never going to use this. That's the only thing I took.
Is there anything specific you will do to get into character, like listen to music, like?
I know for myself, and I mean, I think we've all kind of talked about these things, but a big part is just building that background and knowing who this person is. And I know for me, a big one is definitely like voice, you know, like intonations, how they might talk, things like that. Even if it's just very slight, that's different for yourself, but that stuff always impacts me or grounds me. And that coupled with like who this person is, because especially playing a bad person, there was a lot of work on, you know, a bad person doesn't perceive themselves as bad.
Right.
You know, unless you're like a demon from the foulest gates of hell or something. Odds are
Even them, they're like, I'm doing the right thing.
yeah, so even there. But yeah, so like finding the rationality and the, you know, moral vindication of this person to go, yeah, he is doing what he perceives to be right, and I have to defend that to the best of my abilities. So I think that was like some of the biggest, especially with this role.
You were very good.
I'll pay you the 20 after. You did a great job.
I mean, in terms of preparation, like right before the scene, it's always sort of different depending on the scene and what you're working on, and you know how heavy it is. And sometimes, you know, sometimes it's better just to be talking and being comfortable, and then like, oh, okay. And then sometimes you have to like be like, okay, actually, I need a little time to myself, and you know. And for me, it's like the first thing I have to do is just know my lines, just well as possible. Because if there's any small part of me that on the day is thinking like, what do I say next? What do I say next? That's all I can think about, and I can't really lose myself in the scene. Yeah. So, and I'm a slow line learner too, so it takes me a long time. I have to run it like 100 times, but
Yeah, I have to run my lines a lot too, and I have to get them in my body.
Yeah.
So I like to run them when I'm walking or on the elliptical or something. If I'm lying in bed and I think, oh yeah, I know those lines, I do not know those lines. I have to get it into the.
Yeah. There's at home knowing, and then there's on set knowing.
Yeah, because on the set, everything's going to change. All your environment changes. Oh, I'm going to use that prop. Oh, I'm going to step here. There's so many other things to think about that you have to have those words in any kind of condition, in any environment. So, I mean, preparation, really just really knowing them. And then feeling free within that.
Yeah.
You know.
But I'm always impressed by, because that's, many actors, many fantastic actors can like just sort of look at it, right, be like,
Oh, I know.
okay, all right, let's go. And I was like, how do you do that? I mean, maybe if you're on a show for a long time, you're just getting these muscles work.
Yeah.
But I can't do that.
Okay, my last question is just a brief story of how did you get into The Walking Dead? How did you get the role?
I think we all just auditioned, right? Or maybe you didn't audition, I don't know.
I got an offer.
Oh, she got an offer. Must be nice.
Older than you. But I had 3 questions. I had a Zoom meeting with Angela Kang on Zoom, and I had 3 questions for her. I said, number 1, do I die a horrible, gruesome death because my mom is still alive and I don't want her watching me, getting chopped up or whatever? And she said, no, in the comic book, you go to jail. I immediately said, do I have my clothes on? And she said, yes, it's a very American show, extremely violent, but chaste. And she said, even when couples have to kiss on the show or something, they're all very protective about, are you sure that's okay? You sure you want to do that? And they're really protective about that stuff. And then my 3rd question was, do I have to kill zombies? And there was a long pause. And I thought, oh no, and she said, I can't promise you won't. That was it.
I just.
What was your offer like?
I was sent a scene, and it was a dummy scene. It wasn't the real lines or the real characters, so I didn't really know what. And so I just made a choice and taped, and then they just asked me to come do it. So I only had the 1 taping, which sometimes they make you do more than one. But that was really as simple as that. Yeah.
I mean, similarly, it was 1 tape. I was working like side jobs and stuff, so it was like truly 10 p.m. at night when I taped it. And my fiance, she was reading with me, and I love her to death, but nobody can also piss me off as much as her. I'm sure.
That's weird, don't you?
I know, it's weird. But it was just her being like, yeah, that wasn't good. Really? Oh, really? So, by now she's like, oh, remember that time I got you on The Walking Dead? I was like, yeah. But yeah, it was like, did the tape, you don't think anything of it, you send it off. And something like 3 weeks later, manager agents get on the phone and be like, do you remember what you auditioned for? And you go, no, because you put that thing out of your mind the second you finish it, because 99% of the time you're not going to get it and you're not even going to hear back.
Yeah.
And they're like, do you remember auditioning for The Walking Dead? And I was like, no. Yes.
You know what? I lied. I forgot that I auditioned. I did audition. No, I was at a wedding all weekend and I thought, oh my God, all this dialogue I have to learn about. Oh, how am I going to do this? I'm going to go to a wedding. I want to have a good time. I came home and I was like, all right, let's just do this. Okay, let's just throw it out there. And then I got the job.
Now I want to believe you just made up the conversation today. It was a person on Zoom.
That happened.
I remember you did call me because we knew each other from New York, and she was like, "Oh, are you down here doing this? And should I do it? I don't know. How is it?" And I'm like, "Yes, come down." I had to kind of talk to you because you were a little unsure about what it was. You know, you're like, how?
Yeah, what's the
what do I have to
environment? What's
do?
going
What's it-
on?
yeah, you
Where are
know.
you living? Where are you
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
live?
That's what you're worried about, is where you're going to live. I think, yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause we had to find our own house, you know, our own housing.
We
we
had to
had to
find
rent a
our own
car.
houses like normal adult people.
I found that very challenging.
Yeah.
personally.
Usually we have people, you know, do the things that we can't really do in real life.
Just most
Most things.
Okay, and my last question is, if you could see your character in any other TV show or movie, which one do you think it would be?
Our character in another show? Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Like Lance Hornsby
dancing or
somewhere
in another
else.
show?
Tails.
That's
what we want.
Well, I think based on my first episode where I come out and there's the fair going on, I think I should be on The Price is Right!
I feel like I would be like a great neighbor across the hall in like Friends or something. Sebastian, like every time I walk out, he's always there.
It's Jennifer Aniston saying that, right?
Yeah.
That guy is so
Yeah.
weird. Why
Yeah.
is he across the hall?
Exactly. Like, I don't know, I have like an in to a casting director that Joey Tribbiani is like trying to get in for. He's like, gotta talk to him now. He writes itself. I mean, come on.
I think probably it's Better Call Saul, and we could just trade outfits.
So we're gonna take questions from the audience.
Yeah, we have time probably, okay?
Just wondering, like between the three of you, if you believe that your characters deserve the fates that they got, or like if you would have preferred an alternative route. Because like you all have your own specific kind of evils. Like you, like Lance killed people just so they could attack the fair. You would send people to the house just to get the money, and then Pamela like exiled people from the estates and wouldn't let them in. So like, do you feel like they deserve those fates that they got, or like would you have preferred something else?
As a politician, I have to make really hard choices.
As the son of a politician. I mean, look, I think he was a snotty little. I'm not gonna say the rest of that sentence in polite society. You just have fun doing that stuff as long as you can ride that wave. But I mean, it's always a tough grind because again, you as the person believe there might be some good in this person, and I think there's little moments where you can almost see it in him that he's clearly over his head and all this stuff. But ultimately, it was too little, too late, and he had made the actions that he had made.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that in the way Lance chose his own, I think, you know, when they sort of say like walk off into the woods, I think that the idea of being alone by himself out in the woods was scarier than, I think he wanted to sort of take it in his own hands and just at least make a last ditch attempt, but I think as a part of him was like, if he's gonna be taken out, he was glad he was taken out by Carol, you know, at least he respected her, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
When it comes to choosing roles, do you as actors have any boundaries, or do you feel like it kind of doesn't matter the subject matter as long as what I'm going to do is going to contribute to the truth of the character, or are there some lines that you personally do not want to cross as an artist?
You mean like a part of telling a story that you might want to
If there's something that contradicts what you personally believe in, either morally, politically, etc.
It kind of depends on the message that the whole movie is sending.
Yeah.
I'm happy to serve a story if I have to play the bad guy in a situation, if it serves a narrative that is positive in my mind, or goes to the right place somehow. Yeah.
I would certainly agree. I think it's like a case-by-case basis with any story, because I wouldn't say there's like a hard and fast, like, you know, never this kind of thing. Because I think if it's well written or it asks a question, even if I don't necessarily agree with, you know, moralistically, politically, whatever you want to call that, I find interesting, you know, truths in that or something that's deserving of talking about, I'm game for that. But if I'm sitting there going, yeah, I think this is very surface level, and whatever it is, I don't agree with that, or it just doesn't interest me, that would be kind of that over the Rubicon.
Right.
We'll call it that.
Yeah. It's two different questions. One is like what your character would do, or it's what's the bigger message of the story. Like, I wouldn't want to be a character in a movie that like glorified and, you know, like romanticized violence towards women or something, you know, like in an exploitational kind of way. But I would play a character that did that, and if it wasn't like saying like, isn't this great?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just, so it's more about the overall theme and thrust of the story and what they're trying to do. Yeah. I'll do anything.
Any kind of movie with a lot of sadism, you know, I mean, there's violence and then there's sadism.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing really bothers me. So I think I'd have a hard time in a really sadistic movie.
Okay, so since you brought up sadism, I do want to ask you a question about the boys. So the two characters that I'm most familiar with you on recently are Pamela Milton and as Grace Mallory. Both of those are very strong feminine characters. Both of them are characters that are in charge. Both of them are characters that have made questionable decisions due to the position that they have put themselves in, with Pamela Milton, you know, leading the Commonwealth during a zombie apocalypse. And with the boys, you have a woman who is kind of sort of hell-bent on revenge because of the deaths of her grandchildren and these superheroes and all of this. Do you think that these characters, do you look at them as evil or bad people, or do you think that their actions are justified because of what has happened to them?
I mean, as the gentleman we were talking about earlier, when you play something, you have to justify it. I don't think I'm being evil. I'm doing the best I can and what I think I have to do. And as I said, sometimes you have to make difficult choices, but I have to enter it from that portal of trying to figure out, you know, I always try to think back on a person's their childhood or their history or some trauma that happened that would make them do this. What would make someone behave like that? And go back and try to find that kernel of pain in that human being that makes them act out like that. So I try to do kind of like a little psychology on my characters. And I try to, I mean, those two characters are very similar, except to have a wig on my head for Walking Dead, you know.
I think Grace is a little more complex, though.
Sorry, honey?
I think Grace is a little more complex, though, because
Grace
of everything that's going on with her character.
Yeah. And feeling so guilty about her grandchildren being killed because they were coming after me.
Yeah.
So just the guilt of that too, you know, carrying that around, and how that sort of toxicity affects a person's actions. So yeah, you got to kind of find your way to it psychologically.
I think we have time for one more question.
This is for Josh and Teo. What was it like playing a walker?
Well, how many days did you?
Just one.
Just the one.
Yeah, you had more walker time.
I had more walker days. It was so fun and exciting for the first several hours. There comes a point. The thing is, like, you know how they have like white eyes? Those are contact lenses, but they're not like normal. They're very thick.
Yeah, and they're very blurry. So everything looks very blurry.
Yes, I mean,
it's very disorienting. You're like,
Oh.
In certain light, you truly can't see. In other, you can kind of vaguely see. But it's also that, like, so there is a person on set who has to put them in for you. I'm not a super squeamish guy, but somebody like grabbing your eyelids and going right next to it is not something I'm normally like, yeah, let's go do that today. And you know, they have to come by and like every 15 minutes put in eye drops. Like, it's a wild thing. And don't get me wrong, like sitting in the VFX trailer and like getting into the whole thing is really cool. When people ask me how long it takes, I say it's one Austin Powers length of a movie, because that's what we put on while I was getting into that.
Wow.
So if you want to think about the fact that right before you saw him as a character, Teo had just finished Austin Powers. Food for thought.
that is an official time measurement.
Yes. No, no, they have to
So you got about 2.5 Austins?
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it because there's something, you know, sometimes when you're working on scenes and you're like, okay, what do I want? What does my character want? Okay, are they trying to hide what they want? You know, how open are they being about what they want? And playing the walker is so simple because your objective is so clear. There's no subtext. You know, it's like you want to eat people. You're not trying to hide it. You're not like trying you're like, I know what I want. All right, action. Yeah.
Simple motivation.
Well, thank you all for joining us. And,